Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Connections for Life. I'm Ted Peet.
I'm Chad Cuvo.
I'm Joe Surratt. Chad, where did you
Chad's
get that
entrances are now including props. So,
I'm running out. I can only run through the wall and jump out of
I'm not sure which face I prefer to look at more.
that little kid one. I think I'm much cuter.
All right, well, whatever helps you.
hey, that's how you feel. How was your weekend, boys?
Go ahead, Joe.
Good. Went camping with the knuckleheads. It was interesting. I almost lost Macy in a kayaking incident with some wind, but it all worked out. So we're all healthy and happy still. Moving on. Learn some lessons this week. Stay in front of your kids when you're kayaking on the river, because bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Nice. What about you?
So she almost floated away, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah, there was a scene. There was a whole scene.
It was pretty rough.
It was pretty rough, actually. We got it was like just a burst of air came through, like a micro burst, and we were kind of trying to get in this inlet, and she just isn't strong yet, and
she just couldn't pull herself.
She started to drift off, but I was proud of her. She listened to my instructions and got turned around right way, and she was a little panicked, but it worked out. So
that's awesome.
Callie was yelling at me to keep going. Really didn't care about her sister. She just wanted to get out of there. She was with me, so yeah, it was pretty entertaining.
Dad, she's gone. She's gone. Just let it go.
Yeah. Let her go. Let her go.
You got two more. It
was interesting.
That's great, though, Joe. That sounds like fun. We didn't do a whole lot, really. We kind of hung around here. Oh, except for Sunday, we went up and saw Logan at school, so that was fun. Got to spend a few hours with him. I haven't seen him in 3.5 weeks, so that was nice.
School's starting for us this week here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Us New Yorkers are going to,
you got
for
hybrid,
a couple weeks we'll have school, I think.
Hybrid, right? Both of you?
2 days. 2 days a week, 3 days virtual. So
are they 2 in a row or two in a row?
I believe so. We find out because we moved districts. We're going to find out today what days they have. We requested them to be on the same day as the people that are going to teach our kids on the other 3 days, because I'm not a teacher.
Ours aren't consecutive. Ours are Tuesdays and Thursdays and then split. And then it's weird. It's like a staggered schedule. They go back at different times. So a little hard to manage, but here we are. So at least they're getting to go back.
That's his life. How about you, Ted? What'd you do? You got a new tattoo.
I did. I got that yesterday.
You get the Connections for Life logo on your back?
Full size. I mean, so the EGA right
here. I don't
here,
even know what the logo looks like yet. I'd like to see it, honestly.
Yeah, I got the CFL logo, just like this right here, right in the middle of the back. We went actually up to Canandaigua Lake with a couple friends of mine from the Marine Corps. A couple couples. We went up there for a day. It was a good time. And then yesterday I went and got a tattoo. So, it took 4 hours out of my day.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe someday we'll show it online. I know I show mine accidentally on purpose, but I guess.
Yeah, if I wear a short sleeve shirt, you'll be able to see.
That's what I mean. I'm not trying to do it, but accidentally you see them. So.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Nice. Well, so guys, let's get back into the show here. We got a cool one today. We have one of our I'll say I feel like it was the smoothest transitions from someone on. Yeah.
He was really good. He was really good.
He navigated things well for us. Like, we didn't have to do anything, really.
Why don't you say who he is?
His name is Dirk Smith, and he is the president of Ionix Technologies, and he's a wealth of knowledge about static suppression. All right?
I was blown away, Ted. I was blown away just by, obviously we know how it relates a little bit in our world, and he explains a bit more about that. But how he got into the business in the beginning with the paper, the printing presses and things like that was pretty wild.
Yeah, it's good stories.
Went to college with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time.
Yeah. Well,
they didn't share a lunchroom,
lockers next to each other.
But no, Dirk's a cool guy. I've known Dirk a long time. He's got some really unique technology. Some of the things that we talk about in there are pretty unique. He just does some cool webinars and things like that we'll be talking about too. So
yeah,
well, I was just happy to have him. Good to be able to talk to a guy that really is an expert in his industry.
And hey, one thing, I don't want to cut you off, but one thing we'll talk about at the end of it.
But you did.
Yeah, whatever. We'll talk about it at the end. It just popped into my mind. We didn't talk about it before, but he gave me a couple dates for those things, so I'll pull them up.
Oh, cool.
And they'll be on the outro of the show. So cool. And then we'll send some emails too.
Yeah, cool. Stay tuned for your invite. But without further ado, here's Dirk Smith. Hello, Dirk, and welcome to Connections for Life.
Hey, Ted, thanks for having me. Joe.
Oh, Dirk, how are you, bud?
Dirk? How are you, bud?
Great to be with you.
Great to have you here with us.
Yeah, how's Florida?
You don't want to know. It's just this time of year when we look at the weather forecast, we just want to make sure that the wind in the next 3 days isn't going to be about 120 miles an hour.
Yeah,
Other than that, it's pretty nice.
Not a great time.
In upstate New York, we watch the weather to make sure in the next 2 days it's not going to snow
When you
around
have
this
frost,
time of
you're
year.
gonna have a frost line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our only concern is, suntan lotion shortages. That's it.
We got to check every 30-minute increments up here whether it's going to.
Yeah,
It could
exactly.
be 80 in the morning and 4 to 6 inches by 4 p.m.
Well, when it snows on you the first time, you got an excuse, but the second time, it's your own fault.
That's great.
I guess, Dirk, we'll get started with some of the
Sure.
questions. Why don't you, I don't know much about your background, but I'd like to hear about it to start, and then maybe, I know Joe's next question will probably be about Ionix, but why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background to start?
Well, basically, my father was a defense contractor, and he had printing plants, and so I was working with him, and we used to have a problem with static and printing, and so the solutions were really good, so in the course of being in his business, I invented a new type of static elimination technology, which I have patents on. And so what happened is I started to sell it to printers and auto body shops and plastic molders. Then I got an inquiry in the gas business that they were having a problem, and because I was unfamiliar with it. That was about 20 years ago. So, went in and started to look at the problems they were having with static, and started to take my technology plus develop with my understanding of anti-static technologies, develop some tools for the natural gas transportation industry, distribution, plus also production to solve those problems. And that's kind of how I got there.
That's pretty neat. I had no idea.
It's funny how a problem leads you to solve when you're led to solve it, and you wind up doing something you never intended. I was a finance and banking major in college.
You're doing a fine job.
And now
Hey,
you're
that probably
Captain,
did help.
now you're
help out
Captain
your
Static
business, though.
Spray.
Yeah,
Captain Static.
Captain Static
my
over here.
my dreams have come true.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you just mentioned how it came to life. I guess, can you tell us a little bit about the science of the static suppressant? I mean, honestly, like if I worked at a paper company with my father or whatever, and static was a problem, I guarantee you I would never invent a static suppressant. So what's the science behind it, and how did you end up coming up with the idea for what you have today?
Well, essentially, static is a problem. Any kind of production where it slows things down. In the gas industry, it's of course causes ignitions and puts holes in pipe. In the printing industry, it slows down the movement of materials. What happens essentially is static electricity winds up acting like magnets, collecting on surfaces. And that collection of electron on surfaces, you got to get rid of it or it's going to be a problem. And so what I did is the technology we use for our internal static suppression has roots in the problem I solved on printing presses. They were blowing compressed air to separate papers to feed them a machine. Well, the static inside the sheets was causing them to stick together and not separating, slowing things down. So I figured out a way to dissipate that static between the sheets, and essentially by making air an electrical conductor, and that's what we do with our internal static suppression cartridges. The aerosol static suppressant, though, came about differently when I started to look at the gas industry. When they started having problems with static on poly pipe 70 or 40 years ago, 50 years ago, the only solution was AGA said wet rags. Well, anti-static technology has moved substantially forward in 40 years to the electronics industry because computers, cell phones, semiconductors are so sensitive to electronics. And I was looking at them and saying, you got to be kidding me, wet rags? And so that's how we came around. I said, they need something that won't affect polyethylene, that's easy to use, that's effective, that's versatile. And that's how we came up, and I developed the IGT aerosol static suppressor.
And it's an amazing product. I know what it does and how it works. You kind of lost me down the rabbit hole I want to know how and this is maybe off base a little bit, but I want to know how that relates. I mean, I guess in the technology, but to the printing press part. Just because when I think of your product, I think of it spraying, I think of being colored. When I see it trying to separate papers and things like that, I'm just trying to picture it. That's all.
Right. This is basically, it's two separate ways to get rid of the static.
Okay.
And one of them, the aerosol static suppressor is what's called a topical anti-stat. when in the past, what they did, the wet rags essentially act as a grounding rod. And so you wrap up the pipe and you basically conduct the charge to ground. Now that presumes that you have a circuit, which you can't guarantee.
Right.
And the purpose of the static suppression is to make sure there's not an ignition where there's a worker present who could be harmed. Well, you basically say to the guy, okay, go down in that excavation or get near that potential ignition and wrap these wet rags around it to get rid of the potential ignition. You're putting him at risk in the process of getting rid of the static.
Yeah.
So with the topical anti-stat, what it does is it dissipates the static right on contact. And with our reach tool, they can do it remotely, so there's no risk. Now, getting back to your question about the printing press, that's a different technology. Our internal static suppression. Basically, when the compressor blew air through a treated core, we basically changed the characteristics of the air and made it a static
That
limiter.
makes sense.
Now, it doesn't matter. They call that a fluid. We say air, but it's a fluid, not a wet fluid. But it doesn't matter whether that air is nitrogen or methane or hydrogen. The same effect takes place. And so it was easy then to adapt it from a printing press on a compressed air to a methane line with a polyethylene line with compressed methane. Same thing happens.
Pretty neat.
Wow.
I have a really simple question.
Well, I'm a simple guy. You asked the right guy.
I have a feeling that you could make it any color that you want, correct? But you chose blue. Why blue?
You just have to, it's going to contrast to most of the orange and yellow pipe out there.
Okay.
There's some black, and that has been one, people have said, hey, do you have something for black pipe? Well, the problem is black absorbs all colors. You'd have to retint it like yellow or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
You're just going to have a hard time seeing it. Now, they have a telltale that goes down the black, and that's basically the easiest way to do it. But besides, people like blue. You know, what am I going to do? Put chartreuse?
Yes, that's. I think you should do like
pink, Joe.
Color of the month. Color of the month, right? I was just curious. I was wondering how you just settled on blue, but that makes a lot of sense.
Could you imagine as well how rough it would be on a utility to have one for high density pipe and the others? Like they can't even figure out how to stock 2 different kinds of wax tape half the time, let alone try and pull the right can of Ionix. Like, I think you should just stick with one. I think it's a good idea.
I was just curious. It's a question I always thought. Why is it blue? You know, but now I know.
Now you know.
Well, we also picked this. We want this to be safe, not environmentally harmless. Most aerosols that you use, like deodorant, you know, when you were in college, you would sit there and get the aerosol can and get a lighter and spray it and use like a blowtorch.
Yeah.
Joe does that
yesterday. I might have been
Joe did that yesterday.
Well, the reason is
I'm not going to reply to that.
Yeah.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah.
The reason is all those aerosols use propane as a propellant to push the material out. And the reason they do that is because propane is soluble, it doesn't react, it's cheap, but it's not really the best propellant in the natural gas industry when you're trying to get rid of static, you know? So what we do is we use nitrogen, which is basically is non-flammable. And then we wanted the dye is basically, it's FD&C blue. It's a dye that you're going to get on your kids' cupcakes at the store. So that way, it's not.
I wouldn't suggest eating it though. Don't eat it.
Don't be out.
Oh, you could eat our spray. You'd be.
Yeah.
You'd
Wait,
like
public service announcement. Please do not eat the static suppressant spray.
It's not breath pressure.
I just want to make sure that no one does it. I could just see somebody calling me with blue around their mouth.
Unless they want to be a Smurf, they can't. It's harmless. It won't bother them at all.
I may give it a go then.
Oh my God!
If Chad shows up in the next episode with a blue mouth,
that's going to be our thing from now on.
In the Ionix static suppressor again. Gotta lock it up.
Keep that
Anyway,
away.
That's the reason we chose blue, to make it safe and easy.
That's great.
Cool.
That's great.
Non-harmful.
So, one of the I'll try to get us back on track here.
That was on track.
We get distracted easily. So one of the main applications that gas utilities and the contractors will use Ionix for is when they're getting ready to do squeeze-offs for tie-ins or whatever the case may be, for any kind of maintenance.
That they're touching metal to it.
Can you tell us, a little bit about like how it's applied in that situation and those kind of scenarios? Like, give us a real-world example, so to speak, where it would be used by a utility or contractor.
Well, whenever you, primarily in squeeze-offs is a great example to use for several reasons. First of all, squeeze off generates serious static issues. And people always think of it, oh, well, static is only an ignition issue. Whereas there's a lot of guys that get shocked from the static building up inside the pipe, especially at squeeze off. Because what happens is when you start to squeeze down on that pipe, the velocity of gas picks up and the static builds up extremely high downstream. It also builds up upstream. So you want to suppress the static, one, because you don't want any shocks, because grounding the tool only solves the static problem at the point the tool touches the pipe.
Yeah, the point of
Static
contact.
up and downstream, the tool does nothing for that. And the purpose of grounding the tool is in case the static would arc through the pipe to the tool, and you don't want it to conduct to the guy, you want it to conduct to a grounding strap. Now,
So Dirk, I don't want to cut you off. All that makes sense. Do you have it just leads me, and you can go right back to it, but do you have a suggested length of spray that you should spray that pipe?
Right, I was going to ask that. Good
Like
question.
like on 2-inch pipe, is it only 6 inches on each side, and 12 inches at 4 feet?
Okay, a couple things. First of all, there's been no studies in something like that. And the second thing is when we put out our manufacturer's procedure for use, all we say is spray it on the surface you want to get rid of the static. And the reason we do that is we want to give the operators flexibility so that all of a sudden the pipeline safety manager doesn't come around and say, hey, you didn't spray this right. We had that happen where the pipeline safety guy says, you got to spray the whole pipe. And they called me up. I said, we don't say that in our manufacturer's section of use.
But so you can. We'll smell you in another can.
But it really boils down to what your operator wants to do. It's up to him. There's some guys that spray, like this pipeline safety manager tried to legally make them do that, which we said we don't say that because that's the operator's decision. Some guys want to spray the whole section of pipe. Others just 1 to 6. There's been no research on that. But let me tell you a little incident that happened out in Kansas. They were doing a locate. They were going to repair operation. They did a squeeze off. They left the locating transmitter clipped to the tracer wire, locating wire. And what happened during squeeze off, the static charge went through the pipe to the tracing wire, went back, 3,000, 4,000 feet, burned up the locating transmitter.
Holy moly.
Wow.
Oh, yes. So when you talk about dealing with static, don't just think about ignitions. Don't think about shock. You're going to see that more and more, that the static generated inside pipe. When you have sensitive electronics attached to that in any way, like meters, people think it's lightning, probably static in the pipe.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Well, I'm going to say I've known about Ionix for 10 years, and I've learned more in this call than I probably knew ever in my entire life. Brings me to my next question. I think there's a lot of people out there that utilize your product or have, utilize a product for static suppressing. Do you offer, Dirk, any like online or virtual programs where we could maybe set, something up? Webinar, something like that?
We do. We have two. The first one is to fill in just what you said. I've learned, how much you've learned about static. People go to school for gas engineering to determine pipe size, regulator stations, distribution,
Sure.
But they don't have a class on static. What are the dangers of static and PE pipe? So we have a class called Static Electricity in PE Gas Pipe Hazards and Controls. And it goes through and explains, it's about an hour, and explains the physics. Then when you explain the physics, that creates 4 threats. We talk about the 4 threats. That in turn creates problems in particular operations. So we should explain to people where that is and then how to develop their static suppression products to eliminate those static risks in their O&M operations. Then the second thing we do is we have a class for a webinar, about an hour, that trains people who are already customers or who are thinking about switching over to a topical anti-stat from wet rags. It explains how to use our product and how to effectively get rid of static in every operation. Because the nice thing about our topical anti-stat is there's a lot of operations that you need a static suppression procedure that before with rags you couldn't do, like
you can't get to. Right.
A hot tap. Well, what are you going to do with rags? A hot tap. Purge pipe. What are you going to do with that? So it makes it real simple. All you do is just spray it and you're done.
Cool. Well, I think that would be
things.
I would think that would be beneficial, not only just for our customers, but also for us as well. I certainly would like to be a part of that. Maybe we set up something with you and see if we can get a bunch of people on board to do that. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. And the education part of this industry is something that we all love and appreciate. And even though it may not be in all of our, it's not something that we use every day, I just think, learning more about the industry propels all of us forward. So
it does. And I think one of the things that has happened, if you look overall in the industry has made really substantial progress in becoming safer and having right now, they need to work on their public image as being a safe energy supply. Electricity has that, which was very funny because at 1900 it was just the reverse. It was all gas. When electricity came out, everybody was terrified of electricity. And in the corresponding 90 years, it's just going the opposite. And the
crazy way to look at it too.
The industry's done a good job of dealing with, but the area they don't realize, every ignition has to have an ignition source. And if you can't identify it, then it's probably static in the pipe. That's what's all the research has shown, the paid research from the Gas Research Institute. So consequently, as the industry becomes more aware, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming, they just need to be aware of where the static risks are in their systems and address them. You're going to see a real decline in ignitions, in shocks, and especially in pinhole leaks, because pinhole leaks are caused by static inside pipe. And for years, everybody thought it's a materials problem. Research has conclusively proved it's not a materials problem. It's a static problem.
Wow. Well,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
it is awesome. It's like opening to a whole little, even the niche within the niche within the niche, which is wild.
Well, it's not a problem just in the gas distribution business. I'll tell you just a quick story. I got a call from a gas producer in the Permian Basin. The fire department called him and said, your well's on fire. He goes out there, and what happened is on the well, the gas well, they have a phase separator. What they do when the material comes out of the ground, it's oil, water, and gas, and they separate the oil, they separate the water and the gas. Well, the line, they all used out their 4-inch poly pipe, MD poly pipe for gas gathering. What had happened is the static inside the pipe at the gas phase, pinholed the pipe. The static then caught that leaking gas on fire, burned away the whole pipe, and they had a runaway well.
Wow.
So it's a problem at the well. It's a problem at the service meter.
Right. The whole
everywhere in between.
Absolutely crazy.
Well, Dirk, I'm sure we could honestly keep you on here, keep hearing these stories and learning these.
Ratings up. You want to shut me down?
I think you're wrong.
I feel that about myself.
Shut me down.
I feel that about myself every time we record this. I understand.
I think you provided some real value.
I told Tammy, and she's going to be number one. Me, I'm going to be at the basement in rating.
No, I don't think so. I think you bring a lot of value, and I think the conversation brings a lot of value, and I think it opens up people's eyes to the actual real issue out there, because it's kind of one of those things that it's not something you hear about a lot or talk about, but it's so prevalent, as you said, in every phase of transmission of gas through a pipeline, that the focus needs to be a little bit more. I don't know. It just needs to be more focused on, I think, and I hope that your conversation brings a little bit more of that to light.
If I could just finish up with one story. Tom Rayburn was a safety manager at Ionix. He retired about 3 years ago. He's now Spire. And
Shout out to Tom.
He's retired in the north part of Alabama, living by lake. But Tom told me one time, he said, Dirk, I went through all the claims of Ionix. And static ignition claims were one of the rare ones, but they were always one of the most expensive because burns are nasty. They are real. Sure. And so if with just a little understanding, a little prevention goes a long way in eliminating this problem in the distribution industry.
Agreed, 100%.
I think the biggest takeaway I'm going to walk away from this interview with is, again, what the show's about, and that's the connections. If you look at the course of this entire dialogue that we went through, we discussed static and static suppression and all this, but we also touched on so many different parts of the natural gas industry that, like Joe said or Chad said, the niche within the niche within the niche. This is a portion that ties into another one of the principles that we deal with footage, which ties into the charter manufacturing or charter pipe. It just all ties together, and it's all about these connections that drive this small but humongous industry that is the natural gas industry. And wow, that's what I'm walking out of here with. So
Great observation.
2 million miles of plastic pipe in the ground. That's a big system.
That's a big system. So
System.
with that said,
Well, we
Dirk,
appreciate your involvement in
Thanks
it.
for
Good thing your father decided to make a printing press, because we wouldn't be having the business, because we wouldn't be talking about what we
All
are
I can say is I'm just sorry that I have to follow Tammy, because I'm just
you're not actually. You're following Todd Tannenhill, who let go.
Setco.
Even out
okay.
last night.
Okay.
He was a
You're gonna
stand-up
come out next
comedian,
week.
too.
Well, good. Pretty girls and children, and dog shacks. But thanks for having me with you.
Thanks,
Dirk, thank
Thanks,
you
We
for
appreciate our partnership with UPSCO and your desire to help the industry and improve the industry. Thanks so much for
We
having me.
appreciate you.
Thank you, man. We can't do it without folks like you.
Yeah. Have a
Thank
good one.
Thanks.
Well, Dirk, thank you for joining us on the show. That was a great interview. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your knowledge with us. What do you guys think, man? That was one of my favorites.
No, I want to keep listening to you talk.
Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
Well, stumbling.
No,
Turning it over
that's why. No, Dirk, great stuff. Like I said in the intro, Dirk is definitely somebody that embraces his niche, and what he does in the industry, and it is a very important part of the industry. And I think a lot of emphasis, not as much emphasis maybe doesn't get put on static and how it impacts pipelines and whatnot. So I know that Chad has some info from Dirk as far as some things coming up. Goose.
Yeah, he's gonna set us up with his static and P and O&M operations. It's kind of for the new guys that don't really use Ionix, essentially, on Wednesday, September 16th at 10 a.m. And we'll post that in this video. We'll post it on LinkedIn. And I'll also probably be sending out an emailer here in the next couple of days on that one. But also a week later on September 23rd, I think this one's pretty neat. He has the Train the Trainer one, which is for utilities, essentially guys that already use the product, but maybe aren't using it to the best of its ability or of sorts. So
I just want to clarify. The first one is just a course on static in the industry, right?
Exactly.
How it impacts.
Yep.
The second one is more of a training on his product line. Got it. Okay, cool.
That's awesome. So I'd just like to point out that Chad said he's going to send out an email or something like that. And I was like, what's new? But no, additionally, we've got an update about the UPSCO Expo. Noticed I had to introduce the UPSCO Expo.
You did a good job saying
on
it.
a fumble
I
over
can't
the
say
word.
it. I'm trying to change the name of it. That's not happening. But I'm never going to be able to say it.
UE.
Yeah, UE.
The UE. But with that said, we've determined some dates, and we've decided that December 2nd and 3rd of this year,
2021 or what?
2028
this year.
Yeah, are gonna be our dates. And Joe, why don't you give us a little briefing on what you think that's gonna transpire in that time?
Look ready.
I don't know. It's kind of a work in progress. We have some ideas as to, we want to bring this, much like we just talked about with Dirk. We want to bring something that's more educational. We're reaching out to our vendors, manufacturers, and anybody. And honestly, it's not UPSCO specific, but just to do trainings on their end of the business, whether it be squeezing pipe, whether it be with Dirk with the static or corrosion or wax tapes, just something that's more instructional and informative necessarily than specific to a product. So that's the goal. We're excited about it. We have a lot of work to do in the next couple of months, but we're hopeful we can get there. I don't know if Chad, you have anything you want to add, but
I'd like kind of just piggybacking on what you said. We want it to be, we don't want it to be a product forum, really. We want it to be educational for everybody. And I really think we've talked about it a few times, Ted. I think the side that a lot of the industry doesn't see is the contractor side, because those guys are always in the ditch and always working. And I think this might give an opportunity to that side of it to give them a little education, even if it's not live when we record them and post them on our stuff. I think it's going to be a really big deal for that side.
I think, thank you for mentioning the contractor side. It's kind of the world.
You forgot.
But honestly,
That's what I do.
It does coincide really well with what we've tried to do here at Connections for Life, which is, in these crazy times, we want to stay connected, but we don't want to do it in a salesy manner. We want to do it in a connections manner, in a educational manner, in a way to
share our knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Share knowledge and better the industry. Everything's for the better of the brand, but there's no brand. It's the industry. So yeah, we look forward to it, but we wanted to give you guys those dates. Other than that, enjoy your week. And
I know I'm actually traveling this week, believe it or don't.
Really?
Yeah.
Believe it or don't. I like that.
Believe it or don't. You know,
What you got there, Pitbull?
it's been a while. You know, Ted and I actually got out on the road last week. Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to DC too.
Yeah.
Chad will understand that reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got on the road with Ted last week, and it was nice to actually get in front of some customers. We got to go see some people that I haven't seen in a while. That it was just really nice to have some adult human interaction. It's been a while for me. It's been, you know, since March since I've been anywhere. So
I think what you said, Joe, that affected me the most was you said it was just fun to talk shop, because I mean we talk to each other pretty much all day long every day, but it's never really going into somewhere and picking something up and trying to pick it apart and talking about what it is like we do, and that's what we're
It
doing.
was weird, you know, because for me, you know, I've been traveling forever, and you know, the last 6 months we haven't gone anywhere, and to get back on the road, you know, get dressed, put on a pair of shoes and a shirt again, and actually get out there, I thought, man, this is like labor.
But no pants.
Yeah, no, I wore pants. It was exhausting, you know, just to think about that process. But like 5 minutes down the road, I was like back into it, so it was nice to actually like, all right. Let's
Made you feel a little better?
Yeah, it did. It did. I was a little nervous. I had to shake the rust off, I guess, but yeah, it was good.
It was great. And again, it did bring out something, you know, we've been talking at least about the new normal and how so much can get done with this format now and how the world has changed and everything. But having those couple meetings we had did bring one thing up to heart, that the outside sales, the relationship sales,
Yep.
like, will never, ever
No, it
go
can't. It
away.
can't be replaced.
It can't be replaced.
It's not possible.
Yeah, well, we didn't think what we did before 6 months ago could be, so
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, we'll see.
you never ever know.
Well, all right. Well, we're going to go. Thank you guys for joining us on Connections for Life, and we will see you again next week.
Thanks, guys.
People turned off like 10 minutes ago.